to the valediction function of MLDD, first MLDD course. Today, we'll be having a panel discussion on data-driven drug discovery, distraction or disruption. To moderate this session, we have with us Professor Deva Priyakumar. I'll just introduce the main speaker. Professor Devakumar received his PhD degree from Pondicherry University and Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, followed by a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Maryland at Baltimore. He is currently a professor at IIIT, where he heads the Center of Computational Natural Sciences and Bioinformatics. He is currently the academic head also of Innovation Hub, a technology innovation hub on data-driven technologies. His research interests are in applying computational chemistry tools to investigate chemical and biological systems or processes. Recently, his group has been working on employing modern artificial intelligence machine learning techniques for molecular and drug design and healthcare. He has been the recipient of many awards. Few of them include the awards in Chemical Research Society of India Medal, Chemical Society of Japan Distinguished Lectureship, Google Impact Scholar Award, Indian National Science Academy Young Scientist Medal, JSPS Invitation Fellowship, and Innovative Young Biotechnologist Award. So with this limited information, let me introduce Professor Deva to stage.
Thank you, Professor Raju. So welcome everyone. Good evening, and it's so nice to be back. So today, as Dr. Raju was saying, we have maybe about an hour of discussion on trying to understand a little bit on how the modern AI/ML methods are making inroads into some of the traditional areas of sciences. Today, we are going to speak about drug discovery, right? So when you have a new disease or an existing complex disease, we try to come up with new drug molecules and how AI/ML methods can possibly make an impact in in the discovery process. So that's basically what we're going to do today. And also, I would like to welcome everyone online who have been part of this, almost 3-month course on machine learning for chemistry and drug discovery. So with that, we have 3 panelists today. So I would like to briefly introduce each one of them. So firstly, I would like to introduce Dr. Arijit Roy. Dr. Arijit Roy is here. Arijit finished his PhD from IIT Kharagpur, and then he spent 5 years at Institute of Biological Structures in Grenoble, France, and then Stony Brook University in the US. After that, he came back and joined TCS Innovation Labs in Hyderabad, where he's leading the AI-based drug discovery initiative in the Innovation Labs. So his research interests are in computational chemistry and biology, and he's currently the major focus that he has been working on is in developing machine learning methods for discovery and development of new drug molecules. So in the last 2 years, he has been actively working in this area, and then published papers and patented. Has applied for some patents on how to use AI/ML methods for COVID therapeutics. So I would like to welcome Dr. Arijit Roy. So the second panelist is Dr. Ramanathan Sethuraman, who is online. RS, you would like to turn on the camera, or with logo? We don't see you. Still? He's saying something, but I don't think it's heard here.
Can you hear me? And
yeah,
see me as well?
I could see, I could hear you on the laptop right next to me, but not the audience here. Just give us a second.
You can see me as well, right?
Yeah, I think they will fix it in a moment. Okay, so while they fix the technical issues, I'd like to introduce Dr. Ramanathan Sethuraman. So RS, as we call him, he finished his PhD from IIT Bangalore in '97 and was a scientist in Philips Research Labs in Netherlands for close to a decade, working on video algorithms and architectures. Then he moved to lead a startup, Silicon Hive, in India, which was a spin-off from the Philips Research Labs that focused on domain-specific processor IP business in video and image and communications. So in 2011, this Silicon Hive was acquired by Intel, and since then, RS has been in Intel, working with different business groups in the last several years. So during the last 5 years, his main focus is in Intel is on new business initiatives in healthcare domain, right, in India. So he has published a large number of papers and holds about 20 patents. And it's so nice to have RS on the call as well as one of the panelists. Welcome, RS.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Just give us a minute, I guess. Yeah, we can see you, RS, but you just wait for a more minute to hear you also.
Okay. If I share slides during my piece of, time,
And that should be okay.
that should be okay, right? Yeah.
Purple cable. Right, RS, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce Dr. Kundu. Meanwhile, we'll figure out the audio. Yeah. So the third panelist I would like to invite and introduce is Dr. Shiv Shankar Kundu. He received his PhD from IIT Kanpur, and then he spent several years in the US for, actually worked in the area of computer-aided drug design. And later he moved back to India and worked in different industries where like Affymax, Connexion, Syngene, Quagen, etc. As a computer-aided drug design scientist. And currently he's working in a company called FormCAD, and his research focuses on small molecule discovery using CAD methodologies and discovery strategies. So with that short introduction, I would also like to invite Kundu to the stage, please. Maybe Alice, can I just try to say something?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, thank you. Thanks, Aras. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry about the technical issue. So, yeah, so welcome, Aras, welcome, Kundu, welcome, Arijit. So it's so nice to have you. And, it'll be also nice to have to pick your brains on some of the, aspects related to data-driven drug discovery. So one of the things that we wanted to speak about was, or discuss a little bit about was like you see there is a lot of hype around wherever AML is used, right? Whether it's in speech, image recognition and so on, initial days, but now AI/ML everywhere, right? So there's a huge hype in terms of applying modern machine learning methods to problems in different domains, right? So one such area where people see a lot of potential is in drug discovery, especially in the last 2 years during the pandemic. People have been trying to, devise new methods and algorithms to, see if we can make the drug discovery process more efficient, right? So I will ask, maybe I'll start with Dr. Kundu and ask, you have been working in the area of, computer drug design in both academia and industry for a really long time, right? Maybe 20 plus or so years. So how do you think the nature of how we do computations, right? We have always been doing computations in drug design. So how do you think this has changed in the last, few years, let's say 5 years or so? And, do you see a paradigm shift that has been happening in the use of AI/ML in this area? How do you see it?
Yeah, thank you, the organizers, to give me an opportunity to interact with all the young researchers. Yeah, so yeah, so I think, yeah, to my opinion, computational chemistry is still doing the same thing, and obviously, as time goes, there are lots of research goes on in the same field. So that way, there are not too many changes, but obviously the application-wise, there are lots of changes, like in MD applications and docking also applications in pharmacophore related issues. There are lots of new applications. So that has been changed. And with the deployment of lots of hardware architecture, things has been very become very fast in the last several years. But yeah, with the introduction of the new this creature, this AI, I think it become very fast, and it has, I would say, AI has more data handling capability and more knowledge creation capability, self-learning model building. So these are the things actually take the computational chemistry and CAD to a much more towards an automated process, where large number of, and since last 10 years or a decade or something, lots of data, experimental data, and lots of theoretical insights also came up. So if you try to use all the things in one place in a self-consistent way to evolve and finally come to a conclusion, then AI is obviously the only way. And that obviously changed the whole, means just like older days we used to do part by part, means just like different program you run and then take decisions and then run another. So it took long time. So nowadays through the AI architecture and AI, there are lots of development in Python and other things which enables AI to make, and there are lots of workflow management programs all together from all sorts of things, which enables this AI to basically come to a much more automated kind of process, where you can process huge amount of data. And if you are smart enough, and then you can do lots of prediction in this one. Mass prediction means, I'm saying here, in my case, it would be a small molecule. Yeah, that is the end point, basically, discovering small molecule. But obviously, I would say one thing, that you have to understand the data, experimental data. The source of the data, you have to carefully choose. There are lots of noises in this one, which will easily mislead you and your prediction, and that will lead to a very wrong direction. So yeah, so that is it is obviously a paradigm shift, or you can say. But another thing I want to say, that computational chemistry and these CAD methodologies, these are the science behind this paradigm, new paradigm. So I would see the AI as more of automation, integration, and deployment kind of thing. So science is basically the computational chemistry and the molecular modeling and CAD, whatever. And cheminformatics, of course, that is also another big contribution to this one. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kundu. So Arijit, so when Kundu said we are kind of moving from rules-based kind of methods to learning-based methods from data, right? So you have been working in computational chemistry, biology, and industry for a long time. So what is your perspective on how the industry research groups are adopting the technology, or how the thinking of the research or thinking of solving problems is kind of is changing, right? I mean, that's something that's unavoidable. What is your thinking, or maybe give us your experience on how this is done?
Yeah, thank you, Deva, first for inviting me. So let me answer this question from my personal experience. So I started my career during my PhD and 2 postdocs. I worked mostly on methods like molecular simulations. And in 2015, when I joined TCS Innovation Lab, I had the obvious question that how I can be fitted there. So I asked this question. I used to discuss this with Dr. Gopal, who was also there during that time. And I realized 3 points there, which were wrong. I will mention about that later. So one thing is that I realized that there are many people who has similar experience like me, at least in academia. The second thing I realized that industry may not need this particular experience. Because industry already know some of these techniques. And the third thing I realized that maybe I will not be able to compete with US universities where there is a huge computational power. So I think of moving to some new areas, moving out of my comfort zone. So one of the area I thought was network biology at that time, because there were a lot of multi-omics data and how we can get insight about from that data to understand the disease mechanism, and maybe we can do some sort of drug repurposing. And between 2015 to early 2018, I had no publications, or forget about patents. But I was trying to understand the industry trend. And at the same time, after 1 year, maybe we started looking at AI-based drug design methods. And actually, with network biology, I could see that we can actually talk to our clients and see some of the problem statement over there. And right now, with AI-based drug design, I can see a lot of opportunity over there. During the last 6 months, I have seen that number of companies are going through this transformation. I mean, and adopting these technologies. So whoever has done this course, maybe you can find this, this particular technology can be an important tool for your research. But at the same time, I want to say the same point what Dr. Kundu mentioned. And that is why I gave you my personal experience. So I mentioned that maybe MD simulation was not good enough and not be useful for industry, but that was a wrong assumption that I realize now, because I see some of my colleagues at TCS Innovation use the same technique for, let's say, skin modeling. So the question is really how you can ask the innovative questions. And for that purpose, you must have a very sound domain knowledge. Here by domain knowledge, I mean chemistry knowledge or the biology knowledge. That will help you to ask important questions. And even if you see right now, due to the generative AI, a lot of molecules has been discovered, and people are thinking of improving the docking methods so that they can screen the molecules in a quick time. And one of the challenge for industry is actually the scalability question. Whatever you can do in 5 minutes, can you do it in 5 seconds or 1 second or less than 1 second? And at the same time, you need the domain expertise. And when there is a combination of both the things, you can make a difference. And now coming back again, I would say that it's very important to have a very solid domain expertise. It can be chemistry knowledge and the biology knowledge, because a lot of new technologies will come. Today it's AI, tomorrow it might be quantum technology, quantum computing, and day after tomorrow it might be some other technology will come. Now a lot of people will be trained on the same topics. The important question we should ask is that if we know our particular domain, particular question that we are asking, even the older technology can be useful, but choose your technology according to your problem statement. We need to get out of your comfort zone, because after every 5 to 10 years, the things will change. So accordingly, I think we need to choose our particular technique. And if you know the domain knowledge, you have a strong grasp on your domain knowledge, and then and if you are willing to go out of your comfort zone, you will be able to quickly grasp any new technique that is coming. But the understanding the domain knowledge is very important. That I will say.
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me still? No? Okay. Yeah, so thank you, Arijit. So nice, that what I think Kundu and Arijit are trying to say is, AI ML is not going to replace all the history. It's a combination of rules-based methods and the learning-based methods are the ones which are going to possibly more effective than what we are doing today. So I'll get to RS and then try to get some industry perspective. Now, as I mentioned, RS has been working very actively in the last 5 years in the area of healthcare and AI, right? So RS, you also have been working with different AI-based drug discovery startups. Some, or maybe one very successful one, and some new startups and so on, right? So can you give some thoughts on how these new technologies has influenced these startups in terms of like many startups coming up and things like that? Also, if you can share some success stories that that you have experienced in your journey, it would be nice.
Yeah, you can hear me well, right?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Deva, for having me in. At the outset, disclaimer: I'm neither a biologist nor a chemist nor having any medical professional background, right? So, but that gives me an advantage. I don't have the baggage, right? So I can do an outside-in view on this domain, right? Let me share slides to just walk you through. Is it something that's visible?
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So this is, I think, people in the panel are very familiar with, and I think the audience can get a glimpse of what's happening in the drug discovery space, right? Typically, if you look into the new drug molecule design, it takes about $1.5 billion on an average, and a typical time of about 10 years, right, to get it to the market, right? Because of this high, cost and time, you normally do not see too many drugs getting approved by FDA, right? But with the so-called AI, ML coming in, there is a big shift in the past, I would say 5 years. And I think a recent article in Nature, I think just appeared a month ago, clearly articulates how these AI-based methods trying to make things more computationally in silicon, as opposed to doing a lot of stuff in the wet lab, which is one of the main reasons for the cost to be high, and also the time factor. It takes a long time. Now, this article, of course, you can read it at length. They talk about in this area for the past 5 years, about 150 companies have mushroomed, right? And in the, if you look at the last 1.5 years, this is a list of companies, the top 9 companies with close to $3.5 billion investment in them in the period, right? And even recently, I've highlighted here in Silico Medicine, they've gotten Series D funding, I think 90 odd million. We are working with In Silico Medicine, both through the D4 and also from Intel standpoint. If you look at the most of these companies, right, what's driving them? How are they different from the traditional big pharma, right? So this is sort of a drug discovery pipeline, if you will, as of today, right? Where you see the bottom half of the the slide talks about what various processes in the drug discovery, primary pharmacology, secondary pharmacology, leading all the way to in vivo animal and in vivo human trials. But what you see right on top of the slide is the impact of AI in a variety of these stages in the drug development process. And they have percolated every element of drug discovery, right? Whether it's target identification, validation of the target, to finding the hit molecules and refining on them, and taking all the way to see if there is any drug that can be repurposed for the same task at hand, and all the way leading to a pharmacovigilance, so to speak, during the clinical trials. Now, I would like to highlight one company which I've already mentioned, In Silico Medicine, where these guys have come up with their own tools. And you can see the list of tools that they have in the drug discovery pipeline, which they have used to bring down the total amount of time to get a new drug molecule, which is under 3 years compared to 10 to 15 years that you see with the big pharma, and in as small a budget of $15 million, right? And they have done this for one of the diseases like idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, right? And basically that's the disease with the scarred lung, and breathing problems typically affects the elderly. So these guys are focused on aging-related diseases. So this is one of them, the IPF. And if you look at the way in which they have, migrated from a typical process, which is wet lab oriented, to almost, significant part of it in dry lab, right? Basically computational methods, and that's significant, right? And that's the main reason why these guys are able to find, explore a larger design space, if you will, in terms of the drug molecule and the target, and thereby come up with a better value proposition at the end of the day, right? If you look at traditional pharma, if they have 10 potential drug molecules, 70-80% or even higher of them fall through in this entire drug discovery process, right? And only a few out of those 10 get through that pipe. Whereas with the in silicon or computational methods that gives you a better handle in terms of exploring the design space, you are in better position to come up with the right set of targets, right set of small molecules to intervene. And the way they address this entire pipeline is with multimodal data set as input, with clinical laboratory omics data, imaging data, and be able to understand the molecular pathway, if you will, right? In the omics data, especially with genomics, transcriptomics, proteomics, epigenomics, and including all the way up to single cell genomics. When you have such a plethora of omics data, how do you find how the disease manifests, and trying to identify those molecular pathways diligently, right? And especially when you can identify them early in the disease cycle. And that's very, very important, right? There's no point in trying to identify the molecular pathway as it is in the advanced stage, because you can't treat such patients. If you can identify what are the earliest triggers, and if you can then identify suitable interventions for those, then you can stop them early enough in the disease cycle. So with that, maybe, this is one success story, and there are many such companies mushrooming as we speak. As I mentioned earlier, 150 companies in this space, and there would be many more coming, and then maybe at a certain point later, there would be consolidation. But what is interesting is that these guys are reshaping the way drugs need to be designed, discovered, and applied. And I think the other speakers in the panel discussion also alluded to the same point, that this is a disruption, right? So it's not a diversion, I would say. Definitely, this is a disruption, and I see this as a needle-moving action that can come up with precision medicine, right? So far, if you look at, just one quick example, in the case of, if you have, things like obesity, and if you have, there are certain drugs that are provided to people who have obesity, and if most of these drugs are tested out with the Caucasian data sets, right, they work well. But then when it comes to Indian deployment, they have a dramatic reduction in terms of their efficacy. So I think it's so very important to look at precision medicine, keeping in view the Indian data set, the Indian population, their omics, and coming up with the cost-effective precision medicine. And I think this AI/ML will lead the way. Over to you, Deva.
Yeah, thanks, Saurabh. So, I was actually, this reminds me of a blog that I was following some time ago. So this guy, I forget his name, sorry, but he was actually tracking the number of different startups in this area. He started compiling since 2017, if I remember, November 2017. And by early 2019, he gave up, saying it's just way too much. The number of startups that actually have come up. And then, as you say, it's just exponentially increasing the space. Also, the other point that you mentioned, which is worth repeating, is that the traditional computational chemistry in drug design, right? It was seen most like, even if you take drug discovery companies, especially the small and medium-sized ones, the computational chemistry group is a very small group within the medicinal chemistry division, or a structural biology division. It's more like an add-on kind of a group, but that kind of has changed, is what I think, because as you had mentioned, the different areas or different tasks in which AI seem to be playing a role, all the way from target identification to predicting the clinical outcomes and so on, right? So there's a plethora of different kinds of things that you could do with this data-driven methods, which kind of opening up a lot of scope and opportunities. So thanks, Arish. So with that, I'll go back to Arijit. So so one thing that I think I started today was like, there's a lot of hype in general, right? This is, of course, the general sentiment and the perspective that most people have, in addition to these criticisms, is that the data-driven methods can potentially be a game changer. Like one example Arash just showed. There's this new candidate that they came up with in a matter of like 2 years, and now it's in human trials for the pulmonary fibrosis, right? So is it just a hype, or what is your perspective? I mean, at some point every technology goes through this cycle of going through a large hype, and then at some point it converges to some plateau. So when do you think that may happen, or is that plateau worth all the hype that we have today?
Okay, so let me tell you my understanding. And in order to understand whether it's a hype or not, let us see carefully that what are the advantages. We have just described, he has just described some of those advantages, but let me tell it again and compare it with the traditional method. So in traditional method, we usually start with a chemical library and then start screening molecule from that chemical library. Now, what happens that in this chemical library, only there is a few million or maybe billion molecules are there. On the other hand, what AI is giving, it can explore a huge chemical space, which no one has done before. So maybe through this exploration, we can find some new molecules, completely new scaffolds, which can be more active against the existing small molecules that are there in the chemical library. Now, the other advantage here is that we can do on-the-fly optimization. On the other hand, using traditional method, we just look at the IC50 value. But here we can actually do the optimization during the design process itself. The third advantage is that we can do the multi-parameter optimization. Because there is a huge attrition. First you screen some 1,000 molecules during the heat process, and then you start losing the molecules because they do not give, they do not satisfy some of the properties which make them drug-like, or some of the late-stage toxicity. So here also we can consider some of those properties during the initial stage of the drug design. And you can also include many other things. Sorry. So due to many of these advantages, it is a natural evolution that people will consider this method. Now, the question is that where this method can fail. So these methods require data, not only data, high quality data, and the good amount of data. Now, in case of generative, I was discussing the case of generative AI. Now, at the same time, you need to see whether these drug molecules possess the desired drug-like properties, whether they do not have certain toxicity. Now, we need to see that whether we have high-quality data for to model such properties. Now, here is the challenge, because big pharma there is a huge amount of data with big pharma, but they will not release those data. And if this continues, there will be a problem, because ultimately we'll be not able to model some of those property which make this AI-based methods much faster. So that is one of the challenge that I see that the AI-based drug design can face. But at the same time, I hope that gradually pharma would release some of these data. They have already done some, but more is needed over there. Especially in the space of retrosynthesis, I can see that now there is a community attempt where they are trying to release, people are trying to see if some companies or some some journal companies release some of these data, but I don't know when that will happen. The other problem is that right now there is no reward for publishing the negative data, which is also very important to model some of these methods, especially in the case of retrosynthesis and even for the property prediction. So, but if people start releasing this method, then I think we will make much more progress. That's good for humanity itself, because a drug is a very important thing. Otherwise, what Deva is saying, there is a problem and it will remain as a hype, but I'm hopeful that people will, a pharma company will realize and they will start releasing this type of data. The other thing is that we need to understand that what question we are asking to the model. AI model cannot answer everything. Let me give you an example of DeepMind. So when after the success of AlphaFold for the critical assessment of protein structure prediction, we also saw some of the paper which criticized AlphaFold for because those methods were not successful for some of the mutation, for some of the mutation, how the protein structure would look. But we need to remember that AI model, that particular AI model was not built based on the mutational data. That data was completely different. So we need to be sure what question we are asking. And at the same time, I was saying about the domain knowledge during the previous question. So that is also important because we can create a model with 99% accuracy, but that may not make much sense unless we understand what particular question it can answer. So if we can keep this in mind, I mean, already there are a number of success cases that was just shown before, and so I think that it will continue for quite some time, but the data is very important.
Yeah, thank you. Very, very good points made. First one is democratization of the data, right? I mean, use as much data that is available from anywhere and try to build better models. And once you have good models, then try to understand the limitations and use it more responsibly. Yeah, thanks, Arijit. So, Kundu, I want to get back to the original question on the role of the traditional computational methods, as I was telling, and you are also explaining as to how traditional computational methods or the rules-based or physics-based methods have been there for a really long time, and we still use them for, let's say, molecular design, right? So in the context of this paradigm shift, where do you see, what is the balance between these newer technologies and the traditional methods?
Yeah, I would actually, I'm agreeing with some of the words what they said. First thing is that time. So time nowadays, the first thing in every pharma company, they just ask that if I know all these rules and all this, they have computational implementation of those rules. Okay, we capture those rules to computation. Okay. So why not we deploy lots of hardware architecture and do it fast? So that way, why we should put so many scientists in to basically execute all the routine kind of jobs. So that time, obviously, they have done through integration, automation, and AI is obviously helping in that. So time is obviously a big thing. And also we had seen during COVID time, so we immediately needed something. So if later on, means down the line, if similar kind of situation comes, obviously there will be, we have to do something, we have to react very fast on that kind of situation. So for that, obviously we have to take help of AI. There is no other way. So another thing is that data. So yeah, genuine data, I already mentioned. Data is very important, very high quality data. If we can, any pharma company or any academic lab also, if they can collaborate with some of the companies, or they can basically take some, mainly collaborate with some company or other academic experimental labs to get data, not randomly take data, because this wrong data can lead you to wrong place. And also another thing is that model building. So these three things we have to take care. But other than that, AI is it is not hype. It is obviously giving lots of, that is the technology we have to accept today. I think computational chemistry and this molecular modeling, CAD and cheminformatics, that is part of it. That is basically divided, that is also improving, and that is also to strengthen the science behind that AI platform. So yeah, so their role is to improve the science because AI cannot always improve the science. Some part it improves, obviously, that where the model building and this cheminformatics is involved. There are lots of research also they are doing. They are also very smart. So I would rather say that it is a smart implementation of this computational chemistry.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that you are a hesitant acceptor of AI from what you're saying.
No. This is clearly this is the need of time. So it's and actually we are nobody. So automatically it will be driven by the So we cannot decide basically. So it will take automatically because all the other technology, just like hardware platform, this new software technology like Python, PyTorch, all the improved library we were talking in the we are discussing with the other people just before that. So all the thing, there are lots of data. So all these things automatically it will. This is the natural force. Automatically, it will driven to this kind of thing. So this is not any hype or anything. It cannot be, any science cannot be stay in the same place. Today it is AI. Tomorrow it will shift it to some 10 years down the line. It will shift to some other thing. So naturally.
Yeah. So thanks, Kundu. So Aras, I will get back to you for a last final question. So in the last 2 years, right? We have been working together, ourselves and with other groups on data-driven discovery, drug discovery, like databases, and then machine learning model development. And now we are thinking of productization, startup, and so on. So if you can, give some insights and introduce the kind of work that you are involved in IHub and Unai on these areas to the audience, it will be nice.
Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I'm just sharing a foil, if you can see. Can you see what I'm sharing?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think Arijit was alluding to data, right? And if you look at big pharma, they are by far having the largest network of CROs to collect data as tentacles across the globe. I would say it will be very difficult for the big pharma to open up their wallets or whatever data repositories for a broader research. I see more meaningful data access through kinds of things that I'm showing in this kind of a slide, right? At population scale, if we can collect screening, diagnostic, omics data from a population, from a specific region, and be able to relate the physical manifestation to the genomics and trying to understand the various molecular pathway, right? And then tying them all into the therapeutics, right? Basically, there are 3 prominent therapeutics, right? So you can take the small drug molecule based therapeutics, you have the genetic therapy, and then you have the biologics, right? So those are 3 prominent. There are, of course, many more, but these are 3 prominent ones. So if you look at what Intel is doing in the context of INAI, but also broadly beyond INAI, is to work with these kind of new age pharma companies or gene therapy companies to understand what kind of data that they need, right, to more or less make them independent of the big pharma. See, there are 2 ways in which these startups are operating today. right? Those who are having deep pockets because of their investments, they are on their own. They're not dependent on the big pharma. But those who do not have deep pockets, of course, they rely on big pharma to fund their research activities. But what is needed in all of these cases is access to clean, curated data, right? Both the expressed physical characteristics of the diseased patient as well as normal subjects, so that you have a balance between what is normal and what is abnormal. And all the layers of expression, right? Screening all the way to detailed diagnostics to omics. And when you have that kind of clean curated data outside the scope of depending on, not to depend on the big pharma, then you have many such startups to cling to this kind of data that we can create, right? So one of the things that, we are in discussion in the context of the technology incubation hub that Deva is driving is to see whether we can collect population scale data, right? Look at doing a 1 million patient population scale, collecting physical examination, body parameters non-invasively, answering a bunch of questions and trying to do analytics on that to come up with put these subjects into various disease categories. Let's say 5% to 10% of these subjects would be diseased at any point in time. Get them into one of these disease verticals which are of interest, because these are the top cancers, neurodegenerative, cardio, diabetes, mental, and communicable diseases, and then go through the standard operating procedures for screening them, diagnosing them, and a subset of those, you then take them through the various, related omics data that will be valuable when you want to understand the molecular pathway, right? And once you have that entire clean curated data set for each of the diseases in the disease verticals, then you can tie into the therapeutic programs, which is at the bottom of the slide, right? But be it the protein ligand data set, pick the subset of those data that are relevant as a good starting point, and then go through the in silico process of computational methods based, drug discovery or the gene-based therapy. Now, what I see, this is a fertile ground. And I would say this is the opportune moment in time. If, we can get access to such a large, clean, curated data, then you can imagine the number of, startup programs that we can potentially create out of this kind of a rich data, which can then lead to, future big companies in 5 to 10 years, right? That's the way I see it, Deva.
Yeah, thank you, RS. I think, thanks. I mean, this was a nice summary of our current efforts. So we are kind of 7 minutes to 6. Maybe I will, maybe I'll do some closing remarks, and maybe, if you would like to add something, please go ahead. So just to summarize what we have been trying to do as part of this discussion, right? So what we wanted to try and understand was, how the traditional computational methods play a part in the drug discovery. When you try to come up with new drug molecules for a new disease, how the traditional methods help, right? So traditional computational methods, of course, there's a plethora of other experimental techniques one has to use for a molecule to be proven as a drug for different kinds of things that we do. And then we started by asking that, suddenly there is a new perception or a new thinking that AI/ML methods or the modern, the data-driven methods are going to kind of change the way we are doing things, right? So the question we wanted to kind of explore a little bit was, is this disruption in the true sense that we are moving towards the better, or it's just a distraction of we are doing things okay, but suddenly there are some new things coming and they're distracting us from doing the normal things we were doing, right? So in that sense, there are several nice points that came out. One, of course, is that if we have access to quality data that is actually available today, right? Not It's not open in the sense that we cannot just go get our hands onto it. It's proprietary data, and then clean data. If we can get access to it, there is a lot of opportunity to develop models that can do better and then cut. Like RS presented, this takes a lot of effort, both in terms of the cost and in terms of the time. Right, this can shave off quite a bit of this. That is possible, but even when we create these new methods and new frameworks, they have its own. It has its own limitations, right? Just in the context, you may be reading, different articles on how very well established AI/ML models terribly fail. As simple as face recognition. It does not work on certain people coming from different, a certain race or a certain group of people. And similarly, of course, this whatever methods we develop is not going to be effective for any kind of situation. We have to understand the limitations, and then of course, judicious and intuitive combination of the traditional methods and the modern methods, that's going to push us faster. So like RS mentioned, there's a lot of opportunity here and elsewhere, right? These days, after we started this course on machine learning for drug discovery, and after some of our initial work, I get different calls from several companies asking if there are people who are trained in this area, they could join us as machine learning scientists in the drug discovery programs. So that way, there's a huge opportunity here. Like we have several positions like internships, fellowships, and scientist positions, and entrepreneurship opportunities, and several things that exist, as I said, here and elsewhere. So I hope there was some takeaway from each one of you from this session. So with that, I would like to conclude, unless RS and Arijit and Kundu has something to quickly say, because we don't want to go overboard. We want to conclude the program also. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I would just, for the, I think, those who are very much interested to drug discovery and want to apply AI and other technology to drug discovery, I would say that apart from the computer science and related algorithm and AI related things, you have to have a very good domain knowledge. That is, I think him mentioned, because without domain knowledge, you cannot transfer that biological phenomena or the biology, chemistry, chemical molecule and biology, that interaction, how to capture in a digital format. So you cannot, there are lots of phenomena happen within the body. So we have to, how we can capture digitally or model building, whatever you say, cheminformatics method. So if you understand the domain, also the meaning of the data and all these things, that it is very easy to, or there will be some meaningful model or meaningful chemical means the cheminformatics tool or something, anything you can do. So this is one thing. Second thing is that, there are lots of claims also. Many companies do that also. Some people also get disappointed by saying this one, that they are doing this kind of thing, so I cannot do that. But many of the things are not always real, so that also you have to do this. Means we have to be very, we have to know all this. And also, because I am just saying that don't get demotivated by all these things, because finally you will lead the whole thing. Okay. And the last thing is that if you get a chance at some point, try to involve to any of the real drug discovery program where lots of chemists are there, lots of biologists are there, biology labs are there, screening is going on, and people are discussing, oh, I got this result. So at least you get involved to that kind of environment if you get a chance in your career. So these are the three things basically I just want to mention.
Yeah, so I'd like to say that the same thing, that at the moment, I don't think it's a hype, because during the last 6 to 1 month, from my TCS experience, I have seen that at least some of the pharma company are in this journey, and they are either trying to build software platform on this one of the big pharma company, where TCS will also be a partner. And there are a number of other companies where I have seen in other areas like retrosynthesis problems, or the problems of cheminformatics in general. So there are a lot of opportunities at this moment. But the same thing I would again say that whatever you do, try to go out of your comfort zone and try to adopt any new technologies that is there, but your domain knowledge should guide you to take a solid decision. And when you are building a model, take care about what is the question you can ask reasonably from that data. So that is very important. So if you can do that, I think you will be successful. Otherwise, you may be disappointed for some cases, and that's what he mentioned in his point. And the last thing I would also say, that as they were mentioned here in TCS Innovation Lab also, there are certain internship position available. So if you're interested, you can write to me. Yeah.
Aras, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you like to add a few words.
Yeah, I would say, we haven't seen unicorns in this space from India. And I see this as a golden opportunity to see several unicorns in the coming years, 2 to 5 years, right? And we really need bright minds with different domain expertise, as mentioned earlier, but also with good ethics, right? Meaning it's so very easy with this kind of approach to get into the wrong direction, right? And I think that's a separate topic altogether with ethics on this drug discovery. We'll keep it aside for another time. But if we have that kind of, energetic folks with various, specialized backgrounds getting together into these kind of startup programs, and I don't see why we can't generate unicorns in the next 2 to 5 years. With that, I can hand it over to you.
Yeah, excellent, Aras. Thank you. So we hope, something, something like that comes out of, our efforts. Yeah, thanks. All right. So there is some question on the chat, which is very, very specific. I can't see the name there, but we will answer this, in the chat. Maybe Siddhartha can answer that question. So if there are any questions, maybe 1 or 2 quick questions, related to the discussions that we have had today, we could take. Online or here. Okay, I think I think we can close. So firstly, thanks Aras, thanks Kundu, and thanks Arijit for being part of this. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I hope we could be more engaged and continuously take this forward. So before I close, I just want to quickly acknowledge the efforts of several people in the last 12 weeks in running the machine learning for chemistry and drug design, the drug discovery program. I know there are several online as well who has been attending this course in the last about 3 months or so. Right. So first of all, I would like to thank Ms. Fatima Rifna, who has been working with Dr. Raju, who's been coordinating all the efforts, scheduling classes, reminding instructors, TAs, and and so on, and try to organize everything nicely. So please give her nice round of applause. Second one is the TA team led by Siddhartha. I see some Siddhartha. Please, maybe you can focus the thing there. Yeah, Siddhartha and several others. I see Sriram. I see Vijay, Vignesh, and others are not here, but can you at least tell the names? Bhuvanesh, Animesh, Arihant, and Ganesh. Akshit, yeah. So there have been several TAs who have been doing the tutorials and conducting, the question and answer sessions almost every day over the last 12 weeks. So thank you very much. And of course, the hub admin staff headed by Mr. Ashutosh, who's the Chief Operating Officer of the IHub-Data. I don't know if you guys have not met, maybe you should know. He's the COO of our hub, who heads all the admin, who drives the admin related aspects. So thank you for you and your team. Then the instructors, there are several instructors in the last 12 weeks, close to 7 to 8 instructors. Dr. Maitreya, who handled 3 or 4 lectures, and Professor Vapi Raju, Professor Jawahar, Dr. Charu Sharma, I'm missing someone for sure, Girish Verma, and so on. So thank you for giving your time these 12 weeks and giving the lectures and giving materials and so on. So finally, thank you, Dr. Raju, for driving this whole thing. Though we kind of say that, oh, it will be nice to do a Srishti program, it will be nice to do a ML for DD program. It's up to Dr. Raju to kind of mobilize the all the efforts and then drive all these things. So thank you very much. Yeah. So maybe before I close, to all the participants in the ML for DD program, I know we could have done things better in some areas, but we need to know where we have done not so good, where we have done better. So if and when we do next cycle of this program, it will be nice to know this so that we could improve. So do please keep in touch once you are part of this program. You are part of IIIT and IHub. So please do keep in touch, and also for the Srishti, we'll talk again later. But yeah, so please do keep in touch, and please write to us, Dr. Raju, or any of us, of your feedback on how the program went, where we could have done better, where we did okay, and things like that. So we'll be very, very happy to hear from you and take your criticisms and inputs. Right. So with that, I would like to thank and close this program. And do keep in touch with Dr. Raju for anything that you have. And finally, thank you for making it here. Thank you for people online. And again, thanks RS, Kundu, and Arishit. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
It's okay. I don't know where to keep.